welcome to the Ready Writers broadcast, where authors go global beyond borders. I'm your host, Becky DeWitt. Welcome to the Ready Writers. This is Becky DeWitt, and this is where the authors come and talk about their books as well as their story. It is also the place where words are the opportunity for possibility. Today, we're interviewing Johanna Outlaw. Welcome, Johanna.
Thank you very much.
Johanna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am 44 years old. I'll be 45. Today is July 1st, so I'll be 45 next month. I'm all excited. Birthdays are typically celebrated on some tropical island where I can get a passport stamp, but due to COVID, my birthday will probably be at home because I'm not traveling anywhere. So I'm originally from Alabama, but I've lived in the Raleigh area going on 22 years. Moved here after I graduated from college in 1998. I currently work as a project manager with clinical trials. Last month made 2 years, thank you, of gainful employment.
All right.
Am an author, blogger. I like to say in a past life, I was a cyclist and a triathlete and a runner/walker. I haven't done any of those races or anything like that in a few years. So I like to say in a previous life, I was an athlete. And I'm looking at my bike sitting over there in the corner and it's giving me the side eye, like, when we going for a ride? So I am the oldest of three. I am a godmother, aunt, and yeah, that's about it.
Well, you know, I found your first book, The Power of the Turtle. And it's talking about you exercising and distance running. Talk to us a little bit about this, because when I looked inside the book, you have each chapter in a year format. So
Yes.
That was just like a journey for me. Talk to me about The Power of the Turtle.
So it was about 2016, and I would blog after I would do a race, and it had to be after one of the races in early 2016. And my best friend, who's mentioned in the book several times as the drill sergeant, mentioned to me after reading one of the blogs, he was like, "You know what? You really have a story. The way that you tell it. Have you thought about writing a book?" I had not thought about writing a book, so that's where the idea came from. So he put that idea in my head. So from there, I started to think about all the blogs that I've done about all my races. And I decided to go back and take it all the way back to when I first started getting into an active lifestyle. So it goes back from 2008, from when I first started trying to run with the North Carolina Road Runners Women's Beginner Running Group. So this is a women's only couch to 5K. So it would take any average woman through 12 weeks of training to get you from the couch to completing a 5K.
Okay.
And from there, that might have been my second 5K. So from there, I did 5Ks. I think I stayed with 5Ks for a while. I finally moved up to half marathons about 4 years later. Half marathons to triathlons to doing 2 half marathons within a 7-day period. Wouldn't highly recommend that. Yeah. And I was on a journey to become a half fanatic, which is a person who does multiple half marathons within a 14-day period, three within a 90-day period. Yeah, 3 within a 90-day period. And so I did 2 within a 7-day period. So I qualified for half fanatics, and that was in 2016. So the book just journals all of my races, the good, the bad, the ugly. And for the most part, the reason why I chose Power of the Turtle, because I'm typically the last one finishing the race. So I may be slow, but I'm consistent, I'm steady, just like a turtle who keeps going slow and steady to finish the course. And so that's why I say Power of the Turtle, and then I say Tales of Being Dead Last, because there's a saying in the race world of being finishing dead last finish, and that means you are the last one crossing the finish line, and it feels like you're dead because you've gone through a lot to get from the start line to the finish line. So that's why I call it Tales of Being Dead Last, because there are a lot of interesting stories in my book of being that last person, of doing a 5K with a friend of mine here in Raleigh. We see the water stop with the Boy Scouts. We come back, literally 5 minutes later, they have left. The water stop is gone. The course monitors are gone. We literally have no way of how to get back to the start line. And I literally had to pull my phone out to figure out how to get back. So that's why I call it Tales of Being Dead Last, because it's a lot of tales being that tales section of a race. And some races have gotten better where they have police escort. So a lot of times I've come in with a police escort. I am coming in and the police is right behind me, because a lot of races, that's a liability issue for the last person. Someone needs to be sweeping, because say, for instance, I get lost or there's an accident, that's a liability issue. So a lot of races will have a sweeper. So a lot of times I come in with a police escort finishing the race. So that's Tales of Being Dead Last.
So listen, would you ever think of reintroducing that book or just tweaking it, rewriting it? Because, you know, we're in this thing I call the pause, which is the pandemic, and God is on the couch.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but because when I released Power the Turtle, that was 2017, so it's 3 years. A lot has happened, and even with the very last race that the very last triathlon that I did, which was 3 years ago, a friend of mine is waiting at the finish line. She's videotaping me, and she even mentions the book, and she was like, yeah, we need to go ahead and change that story, Power the Turtle. We need to turn that around. And a lot of people have commented about how I need to move from being the turtle. The next story needs to be what happens after I don't come in last, where you've seen like some improvement, there's some progress. And I haven't really thought about it, probably because I haven't been racing. Well, nobody's racing right now in 2020, and I haven't really raced in about 2 to 3 years. That hasn't even crossed my mind. I'm thinking already about 2021. I had a race goal this year of doing an open water try, and I'm thinking that may be a goal for 2021. So I just haven't even thought about like a follow-up or anything like that. I have a third book that I'm working on that was supposed to be the second book, and it's a Black romance story that I need to use this time during COVID to finish it, because this will be a great time because we're all at home. People have got time on their hands. They reading, they cooking, so.
That's great. So listen, you switched to another genre. You're going into a novel with romance. Can you give us the title and a snippet?
Computer Love. So it's about these two people who meet through online dating. I chose to go that way because I've had a lot of experience with online dating. I mean, going back to college days, 1996, my online dating experience, it was online dating before online dating was even a thing. And I remember the very first guy that I met, the day I met him, he met my entire family. And my mom was like, how did you meet him? And I told her, and my mom was like, this is a story. Nobody does this kind of stuff. So it like even blew my mom's mind. And that was like 24 years ago. So just thinking about that kind of gave me the inspiration for thinking about all of the different experience that I've had with online dating. And what if one of those had a happy ending? So that's what this book is about. A couple that meets online and it ends with a happy ending. And I have, I've outlined different phases of what they go through with the dating, and I have an ending of how it will end. It will end up with them in Paris getting engaged.
Very good. That sounds like something we need to look forward to. Listen, I'm going to ask you about your second book. That book about the transition. Talk to us about that one.
So my second book is called A Life in Transition. I released that August of 2019. It was right before I went on my birthday vacation. And so In 2018, actually, when we met at the women's retreat there in Myrtle Beach, that Friday I was at Olive Garden and I got a phone call from the contracting company that I was working with. And they were calling to let me know that I was being released from my contract. And can you imagine, you've traveled out of town to attend this event to help push your book business, and then all of a sudden the full-time employment that you have has now ended. So that literally happened that weekend. So my book goes through the various transitions that we go, because life is full of, a quote, a Bible verse, life is full of swift transition. And so that's what this book about. It's a life in transition. So we've all gone through various stages so my book deals with going through I've experienced 2 layoffs. I've experienced bankruptcy. I've experienced being let go from a contract just out of the blue. I've gone through, after being laid off for the second time, 2 years of unemployment. After being let go from the contract, having to deal with the reality of how am I going to survive, and not when I got let go from the contract, I did not apply. I was not eligible for unemployment. You needed to have been working for 6 months. So it goes through all of those different chapters that I've gone through in my life, and making the decision when I became unemployed in 2018 to decide to sell my home of 15 years because I could no longer afford the mortgage. The mortgage company was not willing to work with me. I didn't qualify for a hardship because I had no income, because I didn't qualify unemployment. So it goes through a lot of very personal things that I've dealt with. But then I realized that other people have dealt with this. People have dealt with loss of job, loss of income, losing a home. And, people have gone, and I know other people who've gone through layoffs, because when I was laid off in 2015, I was part of the first round of layoffs that my department did due to outsourcing. And that entire department ended up being outsourced to the Philippines. So I know a lot of people who've dealt with layoffs. So it just goes through all those different chapters. And I just, it's a really quick read because it just kind of is much smaller than Power of the Turtle, because Power of the Turtle goes through about 8 years, and I was doing a lot of racing then. But this one is much smaller, but it is a very quick read. And it also talks about, as I was going through these different transitions, how I relied on my faith to keep me, just because when you're dealing with trying to find a job and things like that, you have to find a silver lining somehow. You have to keep yourself motivated. So it also talks about how I started meeting with my pastor, talking about all of this, because at that point I didn't have insurance, so I couldn't talk to a therapist. Then my pastor was like, he was cheaper than a therapist, and conversations with him about the different struggles that I was going through with, trying to find employment, making the decision to sell the house. And it just really helps to have someone to talk to. But the thing that kept me through all of that is that God will never leave you nor forsake you. And I have a true testimony to that even with that unemployment, the day that I closed on the house of selling the house, the very exact same day, I got a phone call that offered me a job, the job that I currently have. So it just goes through all of those things. It just lets you know, even when it looks dark, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we just have to hold on, and a light is at the end of the tunnel.
Praise God. I think that your books are inspirational for it. I mean, because they're for common everyday occurrences. These are things that happen to us.
Yes.
People and people of God. So they're inspirational. But I'm going to ask you, one of the things that I find about writing, do you write in longhand or do you get straight to the computer for the download?
It kind of varies, because sometimes I have ideas that hit me. So depending on when the ideas hit me, I will put them on my phone. So a lot of times, particularly with the second book, certain things would hit me at certain times, and I would just be on my phone and I would write them in my phone. And so with the second book, a lot of different of those categories, those feelings would hit me, and I would just write them in my book. So I would compile some of my notes from my phone into the computer, and then I would compile them with the writing. The first book was a combination. All of that was pretty much done on the computer because a lot of that came from blogs that I had been doing from when I was training to be a triathlete. Some of them would go back to when I would write articles, race reports. So a lot of the first book was pretty much done all completely on a computer. The second book, well, it was all technology. The second book was on my phone and on the computer, but none of it was I physically writing on a piece of paper. Yeah, I guess because I'm a techie, so I was using some type of technology to write.
So I want to ask you another question. You're self-published, am I right?
That's correct.
So did you have any difficulty in self-publishing your book? You know, because sometimes there's so many things that we have to do as self-published authors. My thing about being self-published is I got to believe in myself. If I don't believe in myself, nobody else is going to believe in me.
I would say you're absolutely right. You have to believe that you have a story to tell and you need to share that story. And it was a class that I took when I was
Welcome to the Ready Writers broadcast, where authors go global beyond borders. I'm your host, Becky DeWitt.
And he was like, we all got stories to tell. And at that moment, I'd already published Power of the Turtle, but it only was as an ebook. But in that class, I learned about Create Space, which is now Amazon, because it was a part of Amazon. So it's now completely done in Amazon. So from that class, that's how I learned how to publish the book as a paperback. So, and he showed examples of other students who had written a book, because he was saying at that time, I think your book only had to be 60 pages. And I want to say they have reduced that limit, because I know Life in Transition, I don't believe is 60 pages, or it might be right at 60 pages. So that really helped me in learning more about the different resources that are available for self-publishing. But I didn't really have any issues with self-publishing because I used Lulu to do Power of the Turtle as an ebook. Then I used Create Space to do the paperback. And since I already knew that process with Life in Transition, I automatically went straight to Amazon and used that to self-publish the second book. But no, I didn't have any issues. And I know a lot of people talk to me who are thinking about writing the book, and when I tell them that the process is not as extensive as it is, and it's not as expensive, that kind of blows people, because Power of the Turtle, both books, I want to say my total cost that I had to put up was about $25, because I used Fiverr for someone a freelancer, to make the cover design, the template that you have to upload to Amazon for the book. And when I tell people that, they're like, you're kidding me, because I've seen, I guess, you're on the internet, because we're all on the internet, and they've seen where, I guess, outrageous cost and packages of that nature. I said, if somebody's trying to charge you $1,000, they're trying to make money off of you, because it does not require it. If you're doing self-publishing, it does not require it. And I'm like, you can always have the option of trying to market it to, publishing houses. That's always an option. And I'm trying to think, I don't even think I even tried that. And then, of course, you have to be mindful. There are some scammers that are out there, because I recall 2 years ago, I got a phone call saying, hey, we've heard about Power of the Turtle. We thought about helping you push it in the publishing world, turn it into a screenplay. And I was like, and some things sound too good to be true. And then I listened to the voicemail. I was like, and the guy was seeing at the time, he was like, that's what you need. I was like, hold up. That's like somebody calling you, telling you done won the lottery and you ain't played no lottery, and that's not how that works. And so I went back and looked at the transcription of the voicemail, and I was like, you know what? My spidey senses was tingling. I was like, let me Google. So I Googled, and it came up with the whole thing about this was a scammer, this was not legit. And I was like, anything that's too good to be true, you got to go check it, because that's too good to be true. Somebody's just going to call you out of the blue and say, hey, we heard about your book. We can make it into a screenplay. I'm like, you want to believe that can happen. And it might happen for someone who knows somebody in the industry, but I was just a little leery. So you have to be mindful of that, because scammers, that's a real job. Scammers, that's a real job where they're out here scamming people. So you got to do your due diligence. You got to do your research on that. But
yes, most definitely.
For me, the self-publishing process was pretty easy.
So we're coming down to the end of the interview. I always ask everybody, what is the one word that you think would describe you?
The one word I would say that would describe me is motivational.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens without me even trying to do it. Because even when Power of the Turtle came out and I started to do book signings, and people would tell me how, just reading the book just inspired them and motivated them. And the tall dude would be like, "You're motivating people, you're inspiring people, and you don't even realize it." Because it's not, something that I'm intentionally doing. Apparently, it's just, I'm telling my story because I never know who it could impact. There could be somebody else who's sitting on the couch thinking, "Oh, I can never do a 5K." Well, you got that negative mindset. You've already said you can. You can put it in the universe. But your mind can do anything, because anytime I do a race, I tell people it's 90% mental, 10% physical, because your mind could already say, "Yeah, I'm done. I don't want to do the race." And even though you've trained for it, your mindset needs to be, "We're going to finish." So, yeah, you just never know how your story can impact others. And so that's why I would say motivational.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Now, one other thing, I want you to tell the readers that we're going to let and see know about your book, where they can find your book, and your any contact information, website, email, anything that you want to put out there for them to purchase.
All right. Both books, Power of the Turtle, Tales of Being Dead Last, and A Life in Transition, they're both available on Amazon as an ebook and paperback. I can be reached on Facebook, Power of the Turtle. I have a Facebook page for Power of the Turtle. You can find me on Facebook, and my email address is johanna.outlaw@gmail.com.
All right. Well, Johanna Outlaw, we thank you. It's so good to see you.
You too.
To the Ready Writers family, and anytime you have something new, you know where to find me.
I sure do. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, Ready Writers, this is the place where words are the opportunity to create a possibility. We thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.